Hello and welcome to my Healthy Directions presentation. Thank you for joining me today, and first I'd like to acknowledge you for taking the time to come and join me today. My name is Cath King and I'm a holistic health consultant. I help people with all aspects of their health. People come to me with many kinds of health issues, from diabetes to heart disease, candida to hypothyroidism, obesity to arthritis. But to tell you the truth, I don't know much about these diseases. What I do know about is health. So I don't treat disease, I build health. And when you're in radiant health, disease goes away. I'm really focused on delivering health information and debunking myths from conventional health and nutrition propaganda and misinformation in the media. And to tell you a bit about myself, I maintain perfect health all the time. And I don't say this to show off. But I tell you this because this is the type of information that I want to know when I choose experts to work with. I only want to work with people who get the results that I want. So I can't remember the last time I had so much as a sniffle or a headache. But I wasn't always this way. I used to get plenty of colds, flus, I'd get bladder infections, and then I'd have to go and take antibiotics, which would give me thrush. And at one stage they even found precancerous cells on my cervix that needed to be cut out. And what made me change direction in my own health and led me to study nutrition and health is my dad's battle with prostate cancer. I watched him struggle with cancer within our traditional healthcare system, where all they had to offer him was surgery or chemotherapy. And he tried finding his own answers by himself and tried using a lot of different methods. And he survived the 5 years that were necessary for him to be classified as a cancer survivor, and then he died shortly after. So he's now listed as a cancer survivor and he's dead. So much for statistics. And I've always wondered, if I knew then what I know now, would he still be alive? So today I'd like to invite you in to a different paradigm of health and provide a different direction to those who are looking for one. For some, the ideas that I present may challenge much of your conditioning regarding health, and that might feel kind of uncomfortable. And to be fair, this paradigm of health may not be for everyone. So I'd really love to invite you to listen with an open heart and mind, and take away what is of use to you and leave the rest. And at the end, I'll be telling you how you can go deeper into this with me. But it's really my intention today to provide you with some great information just within this presentation. So let's get started. My favorite saying is, if you don't change your direction, you're likely to end up where you're headed. And that really means that if you do what everybody else does, then you're going to get what everybody else gets. Along with that proverb is a definition you might have heard, the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So while my paradigm of health may seem very different to what you're used to, it's this difference that gets very different results to the traditional allopathic model. So what results are we getting with allopathic medicine? Many people will argue that we're actually living longer, so it must be working. But I disagree with that. I don't think we're living longer, we're just dying slower. Most people spend the last decades of their life in very poor health. They're not really living, they're merely existing. And even the average lifespan of 80 years is not what we could and should be living. And again, not to show off, but I plan to live to 120 in perfect health, and I believe that that's entirely possible. Here's an example of the difference our lifestyle choices make. These two women are approximately the same age, and you can see that there's a huge difference in the experience from the woman on the left-hand side to the woman on the right-hand side. And so I'd like to ask you, which life are you designing? First, let's take a look at some of the results that we're getting in New Zealand, where I come from, with a traditional allopathic model. And I would suggest that no matter where you are in the world, I'd bet that the results in your country aren't terribly different from the results in New Zealand. So in 2006 and 7, the New Zealand rate of obesity was 25%, and that was compared to a global median of 13%. And the United States was the highest percentage at 27%. And I actually just heard the other day that New Zealand has overtaken the United States, and we are now the fattest nation on the planet. An epidemic of type 2 diabetes is occurring in New Zealand, with over 225,000 New Zealanders having type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And every day, 50 more people are diagnosed with diabetes. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in New Zealand, with over 40% of all deaths annually coming from cardiovascular disease. International research shows New Zealanders have the third highest cancer rates in the world, and colon and rectum cancer is New Zealand's most common form of cancer. Around 75% of adult New Zealanders have blood pressure higher than the ideal level of 120/75. This year, about 80,000 New Zealanders will break bones because of osteoporosis. That's a fracture every 6 minutes, and if nothing's done, this will increase to 120,000 people by 2020, with a fracture every 4.5 minutes. And finally, New Zealand has the second highest prevalence of asthma in the world. 1 in 6 adults has asthma, and 1 in 4 children. And I don't know about you, but that's not the direction that I want to go in. This isn't where I want to end up. Now, although in New Zealand we talk about healthcare and the health industry, it's not actually healthcare, it's actually sickness care and the sickness industry. And the statistics we just looked at are what we're getting using this model. And as you can see, the foundation of this model is allopathic medicine, and much of its attention and energy and financial resources are directed towards medical care. There is one sort of bright light there. The good thing is that people are becoming more aware and more open to the other aspects that are listed above medical care, like natural remedies, nutrition, exercise, mindset and lifestyle, but not nearly enough. There's just too much money to be made by medical institutions and pharmaceutical companies, and really none of the other aspects listed above are particularly profitable. So the traditional sickness care model believes that disease is normal and inevitable, that everybody at some stage needs to be sick sometime. It believes that any symptoms can be remedied with an appropriate medication or a treatment or some kind of external technique. It focuses on fixing the problem, finding someone else to fix you, and it addresses the symptoms. And this is because doctors train in medicine, not in health. So they're very, very good at diagnosing and putting a label on a particular group of symptoms, and then matching that diagnosis to a specific drug or a specific treatment. And again, another bright light, this is starting to change, and increasing numbers of medical professionals are changing the direction of their practice to include more preventative and natural approaches. But still, generally, if you went to the doctor and he said you have diabetes, what you'd be hearing after that is that you have diabetes, and if you do what I say, you're going to still have diabetes for the rest of your life. But they will cover up the symptoms of diabetes. So apart from the traditional sickness model, what else is possible? Consider, is this affirmation really possible for you? This is what else is possible. This is the holistic healthcare model that I work from. And as you can see, it's turned the traditional sickness care model on its head. The foundation is nutrition, exercise, mindset, and lifestyle factors. And together, these form a preventative model that provides for 80% of the healthcare system. That means that all those statistics we viewed before could be 80% less using this model. And I'm actually being really conservative here. I really want to give you a far higher figure, and a far higher figure is what I truly believe is possible. Of the remaining 20%, at least half of that is taken care of using some other natural healthcare remedies. So that's things like acupuncture, Reiki, and herbal medicine. And the remaining 5 to 10% is where medicine really can't be beat. That's the part that saves people's lives when they've been in a car accident or have had a heart attack. And it's the part that uses blood tests and other diagnostic procedures to better understand what's going on internally. So the holistic healthcare model believes that we're meant to maintain perfect health all the time, and that any symptom of less than perfect health is simply a message from your body telling you you're doing something wrong and asking you to change. Holistic healthcare focuses on seeking a solution. It encourages you to accept responsibility for your own health, and it gets to the root cause of any illness rather than just focusing on symptom relief. So when it comes to taking responsibility for your health, are you rowing your own ship, or are you still in bed? And this idea that's on the slide here is often used by motivational speakers in the business world, but it works equally well when considering your health. And it's called above or below the line thinking. And it shows us that in any situation in life, you can choose your response or attitude, and you can either take ownership, be accountable, and accept responsibility, or you can find someone else to blame, you can come up with excuses and deny your role in creating the situation. Or even if you didn't create the situation, denying your role in resolving the situation. And it's human nature to want to stay under the line, to avoid blame, because being above the line really means hard work and being open to change, and change can be scary. It's actually a lot more comfortable in bed, but will staying in bed get you to where you want to go? And with health, one of the biggest areas of blame is genetics. You know, we all come with our own unique genetic strengths and weaknesses. But just because you have inherited a gene for breast cancer from your mother doesn't mean that you're going to get breast cancer. All it means is that under the same conditions as your mother, you might be at risk of getting it. If you change the conditions, your genes will respond in different ways. These days, the field of epigenetics is proving that gene expression is influenced by other factors. Epigenetics is the interface between our environment and our genome, and the best example of this I can think of is with bees. All female bees have the genetic possibility of becoming a queen bee, but only the bees that are fed royal jelly actually become the queen bee. So here's a great quote by Charlotte GERSON. "You can't keep one disease and heal two others. When the body heals, it heals everything." Health is health, and that means that I don't need to be an expert on disease. Doctors train in disease, not in health. I'm an expert on health, but the price of health is not negotiable. You can't take a break, and your body is never not looking. You either pay the price for health or you pay the price of sickness. Now I'd like to look a little more in depth at what a holistic healthcare model looks like, and one of the concepts it's based on is that of the 4 pillars of health. So what are the 4 pillars of health? They're nutrition, exercise, mindset, and lifestyle. And we're going to spend a bit of time looking at each of these pillars and what they entail. First, nutrition. Nutrition encompasses the food you eat, the food you don't eat, superfoods, superherbs, and supplements. So your health will be affected not only by eating healthy food, but also by eating unhealthy food. And some items considered food in our society are really just food-like products. They don't serve us, and instead of contributing to our health, they detract from it. And in every meal you eat, you're either getting in the way of your body or you're providing the nutrition it needs. And we are so fortunate in this day and age that we have so much choice. We can choose the most toxic chemical cocktail to put in our bodies, or the most nutrient-dense superfoods, and often they'll cost about the same. So let's break that down a wee bit further. What food should you be eating? Here's a list that contains whole foods, is plant-based, raw, organic, fresh, local, and seasonal. And some of these you may see as just being common sense. They're things that everyone knows. And some things might seem a bit odd to you. For instance, plant-based. When I say plant-based, I'm actually meaning vegan. And vegan is a very different way of eating in our modern society, especially in New Zealand, where we've got this huge meat and dairy industry. But again, we have to look at what results are we getting from eating in that way. You've probably heard the term the standard American diet, that contains the SAD, meaning sad, a sad diet. And I really believe that in New Zealand we're eating the standard Aotearoa diet, which is just as sad. A vegan diet is a really powerful alternative to use. We have a species-specific diet as humans, and it doesn't include meat and dairy. Our physiology and anatomy is designed for plants, and if you think that consuming the corpse of a dead animal will add to your health, then you're really mistaken. There's nothing in meat and dairy that's not also available from plants. And that is in fact where the cow whose milk you're drinking or whose flesh you're eating got it from in the first place. And there's now overwhelming scientific evidence showing that animal foods are not necessary for human beings, and our continued inclusion of them in our diets is solely based on cultural conditioning, convenience and palate pleasure, and I would also add it's based on financial gain from the governments and the industries that have a lot to lose from people changing their way of eating. Raw might also be another factor that is a wee bit different to what you're used to, and again it's just going back to a more natural way of eating. The same thing with organic. This is the way that nature designed our food for us to eat, and when we cook food, that's really the original form of food processing. It's taking something that nature has grown specifically for us and altering it in some way. It's taking away from that, and it destroys many of the nutrients that our bodies actually need. But then, even if we're eating all those foods that we should be eating, if you also eat the foods that are listed in this list here, then it's going to detract from your health. So things like processed food, refined food, meat, dairy and eggs, wheat, sugar, things that have pesticides and chemicals added to them. For every bite you take is either fighting disease or it's feeding it. And we really need to be making every calorie count. Superfoods. What on earth are superfoods? Superfoods are foods that pack a real nutritional punch. So a bit more nutritional punch than your average apple or carrot might pack. They're things like wheatgrass and spirulina, goji berries, kale, raw cacao and chia seeds. And these are your nutritional insurance policy. These are the things that are going to make sure that you're getting as much nutrition in your food as possible. And superherbs. Superherbs are medicinal herbs such as reishi, chaga, paudiako, nettle, dandelion and astragalus. And Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food." So the food we eat and the superfoods that we've gone over in the previous slides are our medicine, but we also need to make sure that we're including medicinal plants as part of our diets. And it is actually said that the herbs that we need the most will actually find us. And so I'd like you to have a think about something that you probably already have growing in your garden and maybe in your lawn, and you may often try to get rid of it, but it just keeps coming back. It's really persistent. And you might have guessed it's dandelion. Dandelion is a really powerful herb that can aid with digestion, it detoxifies the liver, it balances blood sugar and lowers blood pressure, and that kind of takes care of so many common health issues of modern society. So dandelion really is one of those herbs that has found us in modern society and that we should be including in our diet. And the way herbs work to build health is that the plant's immune system becomes our immune system when we eat them. So medicinal herbs, even if you're not suffering from any kind of illness, are really valuable to add in terms of building immunity and aiding our longevity. Well, even if you're eating exactly how you should be and including all the good foods and leaving out all the bad foods and eating your superfoods and your superherbs, you might still not be getting optimal nutrition because modern agricultural methods have stripped the land of its nutrients. And again, with some land, the soil might not have had the optimal levels of nutrients in the first place. And a good example of that is in New Zealand. We've never had selenium in our soils. Luckily, it's really easy to get enough selenium simply by eating some Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are grown in other places in the world that do have selenium in their soil, and they're very, very high in selenium. So you only need to have a few each week to maintain your selenium levels. The average vegetable in today's supermarket is anywhere from 5% to 40% lower in minerals than those harvested 50 years ago. So there's a huge difference. And the most common soil deficiencies are things like iron, magnesium, calcium, zinc, and iodine. And so needing to supplement is not a sign that your diet is wrong or that you need to eat meat or dairy. It's simply a sign that that industrial agriculture doesn't work. Eating organic really helps with this, but you may still need to include some supplements in your diet. And a really good way to determine this, well, two good ways to determine this. First is how you feel. Is it working for you? If you're not getting optimal results, then supplementation is a good direction to look in. Another way of determining whether you need to supplement is to get blood tests. Regular blood tests are such an important tool in helping you to achieve the most you can from your health. On to exercise. Our bodies were meant to move. People don't die of old age, they die of inactivity. Jack LaLanne, who's the godfather of fitness, said that exercise is king, nutrition is queen, you put them together and you've got a kingdom. And yet we lead such sedentary lives. And there are a few necessary types of movement or exercise. We've got cardio, strength and core exercise, stretching, high intensity burst training, but even if you're doing an exercise session each day that includes each of those a few times a week or even every day, you still won't get an optimal result if you sit in front of a computer screen or the TV for the rest of the time. So that's where incidental activity comes in. It really means that we need to be living active lives. We need to be finding ways of moving our body right throughout the day. And a lot of people these days are doing things like getting desks for them to stand up with instead of sit down on, and that's another really fantastic tool to use. But even having active interests and things that you pursue in the evenings can help you with that. So mindset. Mindset entails the beliefs, conditioning, emotions, any stress, past traumas, our paradigms, assumptions and philosophies. And we can see the importance of that mind-body connection when we look at the placebo effect. And the placebo effect is now scientifically proven over and over again. And we can really easily see that when we look at research that's been done with people given sugar pills, and when they're told that it's some kind of powerful drug that's going to help them cure whatever their ailment that they've got. And lo and behold, even though it's just a sugar pill, they'll get results with it. There's also something called the nocebo effect, and that's the opposite of the placebo effect. And we see that when people are told that they've only got, say, 2 months left to live, and then in 2 months' time they promptly drop down dead. And you might recognize the picture on this slide as being from the Matrix movie, and this movie is based on a story of a very powerful imaginary mindset tool called the Matrix. But I'd like to suggest that we're all conditioned by our society to see things in a certain way, and our reality is actually what we believe it to be. So what if you are in the health matrix? What beliefs about health are creating your reality? And what if everything that the sickness industry has conditioned you to believe was false. And what if you took the red pill? So these are some of the tools that I use, and there are lots of others. This isn't a definitive list, but these are ones that I found really effective in helping people to work with their mindset and make it work for them rather than against them. Things like meditation, pranayama, which are just breathing techniques, emotional freedom techniques or EFT and tapping, aroma touch, access consciousness, the bars, and just educating yourself. You know, just asking questions can create openness to new possibilities, and reading and listening to things like this presentation can help you to look in a different direction, and that's what we really want. We want a blizzard of new ideas for us to try out and choose from and see what is working, instead of staying stuck in the paradigms that have been handed down to us that may not be serving us anymore. So what if you are an infinite being? And the last pillar is lifestyle. And lifestyle encompasses so much: sleep, relationships, time management, parenting, environmental toxins, purpose in life, fun and relaxation, connection with nature, spiritual practice, and gosh, many, many more. And just to take one for example, sleep is so important. Most people need between 7.5 and 9 hours of sleep each night. But many people try to sleep as little as possible because there are so many things that they need to fit in that seem more important than getting a few more hours sleep. The average adult only gets between 5 and 7 hours a night. But there's a big difference between the amount of sleep you can get by on and the amount you need to function optimally and have optimal health. And all these lifestyle factors, and in fact all the pillars of health that we've just been covering, are interconnected, and your health is only as good as your weakest link. So if you have great exercise but don't get enough sleep, you're going to have bad health. And if you have an excellent diet but also have lots of stress that you're not managing very well, you're going to have bad health. And as well as looking at the 4 pillars of health, I also look at 3 different aspects of health. So there's health of the body, health of the mind, and health of the spirit, and they're all interconnected as well. Now, I'm a bit of a science geek. I like to know the science of how things work, and I like to use things like blood tests or hair analysis to really get to the nitty-gritty and understand what's going on inside for people. But I'm also very open to the aspects of health that can't be explained so easily by science, that we don't quite understand yet, and that rely on a bit of intuition or take energy and spiritual factors into account. And I have been known to do angel card readings for my clients as well. So body, mind and spirit, and how it all fits together. Now, you've probably gathered by now that I love asking questions, and I do that because questions open possibilities, whereas answers often close us off from what's really possible for us. So I'd also like to suggest that it's not always necessary to come up with an answer. Sometimes we just need to ask the right questions and live in the question and wait for the universe to show us the answers, instead of trying to answer questions ourselves using our very conditioned minds. So here are a few more questions that I'd like to ask, and I'm not going to answer them. I'd just like to ask you in order to help us to open to the interconnectedness of everything. How does nutrition affect the body? How does exercise affect the mind? How does a negative mindset affect our spirit? How does a sick body affect our lifestyle? How does our cultural conditioning affect what we eat? How do our spirits affect the way our body moves? What if you were willing to nurture and care for you? What else is possible for our interaction with the planet? What responsibility do we have towards other members of the Earth community? So all of these things that we've been talking about, the pillars of health and the different aspects of health, can weave together. They create a tapestry of health. So body, mind and spirit weave into each of the pillars to create each person's whariki, woven mat or tapestry of health, and it's unique for every single person. There's no one recipe that is going to be right for everybody. Now I'd like to show you an example of how one pillar of health, and I'm going to use nutrition, can weave into each aspect of health, the mind, the body and the spirit. And we're starting with the most obvious connection, which is how nutrition affects our bodies. And we've all heard the saying that you are what you eat, and science shows us how the food we eat literally integrates into our cells. And here pictured is an example of this. This is a young woman who had the most terrible skin problems on a very sad diet. And then after switching to a low-fat raw vegan diet, on the right-hand side, you can see the huge difference in her skin. And that's really the effect of the food that she's eating integrating into her skin cells and forming part of her. There's also a connection between the food we eat and our mind. Foods have chemicals in them that affect our brains, and you can see this very clearly with chocolate. And we've all experienced the ability of chocolate to lift our mood, and that's due to some special chemicals in the raw ingredient, the main raw ingredient of chocolate, which is cacao. Cacao contains anandamide, and that's the bliss chemical. It also contains phenethylamine, and that's the love chemical, and that's how come chocolates come to be associated with romance. And another not so obvious example is in meat consumption. So in addition to the way that meat negatively affects our bodies with its cholesterol and the amount of animal protein that's very difficult for our bodies to assimilate, it also negatively affects our minds. And most people, when they switch to a vegan diet, feel a lot less aggressive. When you consume meat, you're consuming the physical manifestation of an act of violence, and all the fear hormones that the animal produced before slaughter are in that piece of meat. And the author Leo Tolstoy said that as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. And another area we can see that connection of nutrition and mind is with mental illness. Things like depression, anxiety, bipolar. And while I don't mean to suggest that food is the only aspect to these illnesses, there's definitely many different aspects and causes of mental illness. One of the biggest causes is nutrition. So when our brains don't get the nutrients they need, they don't function optimally. And when we consume food that have got a lot of toxins in them, or produce toxins in our body, or cause some kind of imbalance in our chemistry, then that food is poisoning our brain, and our brain can't function well. And probably the best example I can think of work that's been done in this field is Dr. Abram Hoffer, who has had amazing results treating depressed patients simply using niacin, which is vitamin B3. Finally, the connection between nutrition and spiritual health. And here's a Kirlian photo that shows the electrical coronal discharge of an organic broccoli on the left and an commercially grown broccoli on the right. And you can see the far more powerful electrical vibration of the organically grown broccoli. Now, all energy comes ultimately from the sun, and plants are the only life forms that can use the sun's energy to make food through photosynthesis. Stored sun energy finds its way into our cells via food in the form of these minute particles of light called biophotons. And they have the power, the biophotons have the power to order and regulate, and so to elevate us to a higher level of vibration. And we can also really see this connection between our food and our spirituality in the food, that the spiritual practices we have around food, and that many societies over human history have had around food. And molecular and physiological evidence also shows that these are very real, that when we do things like saying grace or blessing food, that it creates physiological changes in us that make us more ready to eat our food. It moves us from a sympathetic state, which is kind of a stressed, running from a tiger kind of state, to a parasympathetic state, which is good for digestion. And there's evidence now of these measurable changes occurring in both the person doing the blessing and also in the food itself. The field of quantum physics has shown how the molecular structure of water and the water contained in our food is influenced by the energy vibrations around it. So in addition to doing these things, we also tend to feel a deeper sense of intimacy with our food when we engage in all of these different spiritual food practices. But lastly, we also need to consider the karma of our diet. And this is very well expressed by raw food advocate David WOLFE, who says that every chicken killed, every calf stripped away from its mother, every fish plucked from its school, every monkey tortured in a cage is a burden of pain upon total humanity and weighs heavy on the karmic scales. So where does this leave you? Are you intrigued? Do you want to take this further? Do you want to know more? Now, a very dear friend of mine that I've known for many years, and she's watched my journey in my own health and with my career in health, and she's overweight, she's often ill, she takes a lot of medication for a variety of ailments and health issues, and then she sees me in perfect health with all this energy. And a while back she said, you know, if you're still as healthy as you are now in 30 years' time, I'll take your advice. And I just feel like shaking her and saying, you don't have that time. If you want to be healthy at 80, you have to start practicing now. So if I ask you, if I could just snap my fingers and change your health, would you say no? I'll take my health exactly as it is? And I'd like to suggest that if you keep doing what you're doing now, nothing is going to change. So I wonder, is now the time to look in a different direction? So what can I offer you? These I offer a number of different services through my business Seeking Health, and the packages I offer that are face-to-face for people who live in Christchurch, New Zealand, and are able to come to my clinic always start with a complimentary enrolment interview. And a complimentary enrolment interview is where we sit down together and I am interviewing you and you are also interviewing me to see if we have a good fit and if we want to work with each other. And I really want to work with people who know that they want the best for themselves. I don't want to work with people when I want their health more than they do. And people also have to know that I have no quick fixes. I don't offer magic bullets. You have to be prepared to do the work and make the changes. But I can walk alongside you and I can hold your hand. And so based on that, if I feel that you are prepared to do the work that's possible, if you have the motivation to do it for yourself, then I will offer some kind of package. And a package really is very individual, and it varies between 3 months and 12 months, and depending on what the person needs, it could be priced from say $390 all the way up to $1,100. And you know, if one of these sessions, if one of my packages would contribute to you, you are so welcome to contact me through my webpage to make a time for us to get together for a free enrollment interview. And I give my commitment that you will always get the best that I've got, that I will give you 100%. But I can only work with a few people at a time. It's very time consuming, so I'm quite choosy. And I also realize that not everyone can afford the investment required. Now, these are some of the additional services that I offer to people as part of their package. I might sit down and do an EFT session with them, or do some personal training sessions. We might do a bars treatment or an aroma touch treatment. And I also have health products that they buy. But I really believe that health is our birthright, and it's not a luxury that should be that is available just to those who can afford it. And so I've put together something else for people who maybe can't go the whole way with a face-to-face package, or for people who don't live in a convenient location to come and see me, and also for me to be able to help a lot more people. And this is the special offer that I've put together. It's a package of 12 months worth of consultations that you do online. It's called Healthy Directions, and it enables you to work with me for 12 months, and it will enable me to help a lot more people. And so what you get with this package is that, first of all, although it's an online program, it is completely tailored to you personally. So when you enroll, I email you a comprehensive health questionnaire, and after you've completed and returned it, I'll put together a wellness plan that outlines the baby steps for you to take in all 4 pillars of health: nutrition, exercise, mindset and lifestyle. And then each month you will receive 4 downloadable modules that are based on this questionnaire to help you make changes in each of the 4 pillars of health to benefit each of the 3 aspects of health. So that's body, mind and spirit. And each module will be chosen to specifically address your health issues and your health goals. And the modules will contain articles and videos on each topic, which will give you the why. it's really important for you to understand the reasoning behind it in order to be convinced to take those steps. And it will also contain suggestions for implementation. So that includes things like recipes, worksheets and schedules, and that gives you the how. And this program, it's about direction. It's about changing your direction. It's not about speed. And in a year from now, you need to consider, will you be further down the road to health or disease? And you will be amazed at how much change you can make in a year taking these baby steps. So this program will allow you to take baby steps in a new direction. And if you have any questions about anything when you get the modules, if you're not sure of anything, or you come across any problems or issues that you need to address, you can just email me, and I will always be there to answer your questions, and we can make adjustments in the program, and I'll use that feedback to maybe change some of the modules that you receive in future. So how much is this going to cost? You will need to invest $300 for the whole year. That's the whole package. And that's only $25 per month to break it down, and less than $6 a week. And although I'm not a coffee drinker, but I am told that many people buy coffee for around the price of $6, or between say $3 and $6 is how much a takeaway coffee might cost you. So that's the whole investment. And where do you want to be in a year's time, in 10 years' time, and in 50 years' time? So is now the time for you to change direction for your health. I'm passionate about health and longevity, and I'd love to be of service to you and to show you how to eat the cleanest, highest vibrational foods on the planet. I'd love to provide you with access to the most amazing superfoods and superherbs, to help you develop a new relationship with food and your body, to help you live in alignment with your highest values, to reduce or eliminate dependence on pharmaceutical medications, to become pain-free, to reconnect to your natural state of perfect health, and reclaim your health and well-being to become this vibrant vessel of vitality. And often when people come to me, they feel like they've tried everything, and it's my intention to be the end to your search. And I'm so sure that this model of health will work for you that I'm prepared to give you your money back if at the end of 12 months you can put your hand on your heart and tell me that you followed my recommendations and you didn't get the results you wanted. So to sign up for the Healthy Directions package, you'll want to click on the enroll button that's on this page and enter your details. And I'd love to work with as many of you as possible, and I want you to get the results you're looking for, and I will do my utmost to make sure that you get the health that you want and deserve. So my last question, how does it get any better than that?